Hello everyone, welcome to How to Make Music Today. I'm Dave Askew with Groove3.com, and today I'm going to give you a crash course on how to make music using today's modern music technology. So when we talk about specifics, there's quite a bit to know, but when you're just getting started, it's relatively simple, assuming you know some of the terminology and understand how some of the equipment works and see how it's all set up. So today, we're going to be going into my studio where I've set up a few essential pieces of hardware and software that you can use to make beats, record your own voice, or even record a live instrument. Then we'll use the computer to edit and mix, and then turn it into a format that we can use to share with the world. So if you're ready, come on in and we'll get started. All right, everyone, welcome to my studio. So instead of starting with just one piece of this puzzle, we're going to look at the system as a whole to begin with. Why? Because I want you to see that even though separate pieces of gear make up the studio, it's really one living thing that we can use and play like an instrument. Okay, so let's say you want to make a beat. Well, the first thing you need is something to play and compose your beat on. This is called a USB MIDI controller. It's one of the many types of controllers that we can use to send messages to our computer, telling it to play something. MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's basically a device that looks like a musical instrument, and we can play it like a musical instrument, but it doesn't have any built-in sounds. We just connect it to the computer using a simple USB connection. So how is this sound being made? Well, that's where your computer comes in. Within the computer lives a program called a DAW, or Digital Audio Workstation, and sometimes you'll hear it referred to as a DAW. So the computer, along with its software, kind of serves as a big multi-track recording and editing device. In terms of software, there's many DAWs available, and they're all really amazing at what they do. Inside of DAWs live things called plugins and virtual instruments. These are smaller programs that emulate real-world hardware and instruments. In this case, I have a virtual instrument loaded up that reproduces the sounds of real-life drum machines. Today, there's virtual instruments that can reproduce just about any sound that you can imagine, from pianos, guitars, horns, strings, synthesizers, and even more. So now that you know how the drum sounds are being made, let's quickly look at how you program them to make a beat. In your DAW, we have something called tracks. Typically, each type of different sound or instrument in your song will get its own track. And there's different types of tracks for different types of things. In this case, we're recording a virtual instrument, so we're going to use an instrument track. And we have our virtual drum machine inserted onto the instrument track. Now we have to tell the DAW that we want to record something onto this track. So now we record enable the track like so, click record, and hear our count off click. And we'll record our beat in real time to the click using our MIDI controller. When we're done recording, we press the stop button. In the DAW, you'll now see that the instrument track has some notes showing up on it. These are called MIDI notes, and they represent the keys and pads that we just played on our MIDI controller. In the DAW, we can play it back by pressing the play button, and the MIDI notes tell the virtual drum machine to play its sounds accordingly. So what's next? Now that you have MIDI notes in the computer, there's a million different ways to edit and manipulate them. You can make them play back in perfect time by applying this function that we call quantize, and the MIDI notes will all be moved to the closest bar or beat, making your drums feel rock solid. Another thing that we can do with MIDI is change the notes even after they've been recorded, which we can easily do using our mouse. So if we make a mistake when we record with MIDI, we can use the DAW to easily correct them. And that's just a few ways to manipulate your MIDI notes in your DAW. And for this video, I'm not really going to go any further, only because MIDI is such a vast subject. Plus, there's tons of videos on Groove 3 that show you how to work in your specific DAW, so check those out. And those videos can even help you decide which DAW is going to be best for you. So in the DAW, let's take this beat and we'll put an acoustic drum sound on it using a different virtual instrument. Now you can hear it's the same beat, it just has different sounds. The ability to change sounds and instruments on the fly make MIDI a really fun thing to work with. So now that we have our beat, how would we record a guitar on top of that? Well, this is where this other device comes in. This is called an audio interface. An audio interface is a piece of hardware that you connect directly to your computer with a USB cable or a Thunderbolt cable or another type of connection, just like our MIDI controller. Our DAW receives and sends audio directly to this device. On the audio interface, we have the proper connections that let us plug in an instrument, like a guitar or even a microphone for our voice, and we use these to record it directly into the DAW. These types of connections are called inputs because we'll be inputting audio into the computer. So in order to do that in our DAW, we just need to create another type of track called an audio track, and we set its input to the channel that we want to record from on our audio interface. In this case, we have our guitar plugged into input 1 on the audio interface. So we're going to set the track's input to channel 1, and you'll see it and hear it as we play. But right now, our electric guitar doesn't sound very good. For this, we can use one of those other pieces of software we were talking about earlier called a plugin. And just like virtual instruments, plugins live right inside of your DAW. And we use them as effects and can manipulate the sound of our audio once it's inside of our DAW. So here, let me insert a plugin that simulates the sound of a guitar amplifier. And then we can use it to dial in a guitar tone. Now, before we start recording, you'll want to adjust the knobs on your audio interface and set the proper recording levels so that it's not too wimpy sounding and it's not too strong. And once we have the level set correctly, we can press record and start playing our instrument. Now, unlike the MIDI notes for our beat, which tell the virtual instrument to make sound, this time our guitar is making the actual sound, and your audio interface captured it, digitized it, and it shows it as this waveform on the audio track. Now, just like our MIDI notes, there's a million different ways that we can edit and manipulate audio. For instance, let's say I want to have this guitar part repeat over and over again. In the old days, we would have to play the part again, but through the wonders of modern recording technology, I can just select this audio waveform and copy and paste it, much like you do when you're working with text in a Word document. Now, the other thing that our audio interface does is it allows us to plug in high quality speakers or headphones so that we can get a better sound in our studio that's more accurate compared to the small speakers that are built into your computer. These types of connections are called outputs because we output the sound that's coming from our DAW to a set of speakers or headphones. And this is something that's very important when mixing beats and music. So let's take a look at that now. Since you now know how to record beats and instruments, let's skip ahead to a project that I have that has more instruments and parts in it. You would get to this point by recording more instruments and parts, copying, pasting, and further editing, building up what we call the arrangement. This is simply how your beat or song moves along from left to right along the timeline of your DAW. And once your arrangement is done, you'll want to mix your production so that it sounds good and that the instruments are blended and get it to a point where you can share it with the world. Now, mixing in your DAW is very cool. You'll recall that each sound in the DAW gets its own track. In the DAW mixer, every track has its own audio channel. We use each one of these audio channels to balance the volume and adjust the tone or color of each sound. so that we can make a more cohesive blend or mix of all of the different sounds and parts. This is also where we can add different plugins and effects. So when we start playback in our DAW, all of these sounds come through our audio channels and are then sent to a master stereo channel, or master bus. This master bus is the last stop before your mix gets printed into a single audio file that you can share and upload to, say, something like SoundCloud or YouTube for the world to hear. So once we've refined our mix and have it sounding exactly the way we want, we do something in the DAW called exporting. What this does is create a single audio file out of the sound that's getting played from our master bus. And it's the same sound that we're hearing in our speakers and headphones. Once you're finished exporting, you can either make a CD from this file, turn it into an MP3 and share it with your friends, or even upload it onto the web. Now, this has been an extremely condensed version of how to make music today as it relates to software and computers. And we've really only showed the bare essentials of some of the equipment that you'll need to get up and running and some of the steps that you need to take. But that's where Groove 3 comes in. Groove 3 has a vast selection of video tutorials designed to make learning your studio gear and software fast and easy, allowing you to concentrate on what's most important, and that's making music. So visit groove3.com today and check out their All Access Pass. It gives you instant access to every single video on the site and any videos that get added during your membership. They release new videos every week, and they cover all of the latest updates and developments in studio DAW technology, and also have tons of cool videos on how to play instruments, produce and record music, mix and master recordings, and much more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the site.